In the last stream, we were working on finally setting up our next two reactors, reactor number 3 and number 4, to get us the Californium that we needed in order to finally get quantum research up and running. And at the very end of the last stream, we did manage to get one single piece of quantum research cooking, and since the end of the last stream, we now have one singular piece of quantum research inside of this compacting drawer here, and hopefully what we're going to get going at the start of today's stream is the automation of the rest of this. So my plan for the start of today's stream is to move this electrolyzer over to our reactor zone. I've crafted a few more of these HV capacitors between streams. I'm going to move the electrolyzer to the end of that capacitor. Initially, I was thinking about moving the whole system here over to that other area, but I think that we can probably quite easily get away with just moving the electrolyzer and the aqueous accumulator, and then using integrated dynamics, I think we can transfer the fluids, those being the hydrogen and the oxygen, around to these two salt mixers. And so let's quickly go ahead, grab this guy. We'll also grab this guy, and then for now we can take both of these away. And we're going to replace those with fluid exporters, which should not be too difficult for us to craft. Do we have any fluid interfaces? We do. Fantastic. So we'll put two of these down here and here. Fantastic. So over at the other end, right here, these are all still offline. I've not turned back on the reactor that is processing the HEP241. So currently there's no power in our capacitor bank, but that's intentional because I want all the power available for this electrolyzer. Here, what we're going to do, we're going to place down the electrolyzer. We're going to make sure that it gets power from the bottom, which it should do by default. And then all we should have to do is input the water, which we can do like this. Make sure this is set to output at the bottom. And then, of course, make sure this is set to extract, always active. And then this is already set to insert. That's going to fill up. And then what we want to do from there is probably grab 2 more tanks so that we can store both the hydrogen and the oxygen. And I think in an ideal world as well, we would want to have some upgrade kits to make sure that we can store quite a large amount of both the hydrogen and the oxygen. We do already have actually a couple of tanks from a long time ago hiding out at the back of the base here. I do wonder if I can void the liquid in these. I actually don't know if that works, but I'm going to try it real quick. If I pick this up and then just like craft it, can I get rid of the liquid? I can't, unfortunately. That is a shame. Although, what I might be able to do actually, I might be able to right-click these onto the nullifier that we're using to get rid of all of our creosote, and that might actually empty them out, because I do think they work potentially like buckets in that regard. Let's give it a try. Over here, if I right-click, they do totally get emptied. Nice. That saves us having to waste a few more upgrade kits on these 2 tanks, and so over here, we're going to have 1 tank for oxygen, which we could probably put 1 block closer, and 1 for hydrogen. In here, we just want to make sure that this gets power. Once it does get power, we then want the hydrogen, which I think is here, going out on the right, and then we want the oxygen going out on the left. The other resources we don't want going anywhere, and we want to make sure that we void the excess on all of those. I think that's right, but there's only one way we'll find out, and that's by turning this reactor back on. Before we do that, people in the Twitch chat have pointed out that this sequential fabricator isn't actually getting power because of the fact that we didn't put down an extra fission reactor port behind it in the last episode. So real quick, we do want to make another one of these, and we want to make sure that that goes directly behind this sequential fabricator. Like so. So now that should get power. That should continually craft the HECM at 247 fuel. Let's turn you... Oh, you're already on. Hold on. Do you need to be turned on? You need to be turned on. There we go. That's going to start running through the HECM 247, which is what we want. Okay, so it does look here like we are backed up on the americium and the curium here. I don't think that we need either of those. And so I think, to be honest, a void upgrade is probably going to do the job here. We'll just whack that in and hopefully get rid... Can I use this? I totally can. We don't need that anymore. That was an unused drawer, and so we'll do something like that. That should hopefully keep this going. Fantastic, and hopefully should get some more power into our reactor. Again, the idea really is that we want this reactor here back online. this is fully backed up on depleted fuel, and that is because you are backed up on plutonium-241, and that is because you're also... Oh, no, wait. Plutonium-241 is up here. Okay, fine. In that case, let's get maybe like a few more emerald or diamond upgrade kits to allow us to make this a little bit bigger. And that should hopefully keep that going for at least a little while longer. And ideally, I think we'd want to do the same thing with the other drawers as well. So let me quickly do some more of the 2x2 drawers, because you get the most bang for your buck with 2x2 drawers, and then we'll throw in some more drawer upgrades to allow us to hopefully at least kick the can down the road, although we should probably also throw a couple of void upgrades in basically all of these drawers as well to make sure that everything keeps going, because I think at this point in the pack, the most important thing for us is just to keep the power coming in. We want to keep the reactors online as long as possible. We want to make sure that power is always on the up and up. That's really our main objective. So let's take a look over here. This is now full on power, which is fantastic, and this is filling up very nicely. So we can now look at putting speed and energy upgrades into this electrolyzer, and of course the idea here is that we can hopefully put in more speed and energy upgrades than we were using previously. So I'm going to try for 10 speed, 10 energy. That is 44,000 redstone flux per tick, but that's over twice as fast as we had it before. That is using too much power, but I do wonder if that's because, are you not online? Yeah, you're still not online. That's because you're still backing up 241. That's this one here. Oh, there's no... Oh, we had this last time. I'm not quite sure what the deal is here. Let me do that, and hopefully that kicks that back into gear. Fantastic. That should hopefully get our power back into the positives. It does indeed, and that should in turn allow us to increase our number of speed and energy upgrades in here as well. This is now using 64,000 redstone flux per tick. We want to then take that hydrogen and that oxygen and pump it into their respective tanks. For that, we need a few more fluid pipes. Thankfully, we've got a lot of those. Let's do you and you. We'll make sure you're set to extract, always active, and of course, you're also set to extract, always active. So now we have hydrogen over here and oxygen over here. For that, we just need to get 2 fluid interfaces. 1 for the hydrogen, and of course 1 for the oxygen. And then if we connect those up to our integrated dynamics system, we should then be able to go and export the fluid over on the fluid exporters that we just placed down a moment ago, and that should kind of bring everything together. So let's do this, and then I'm fairly certain we are going to need at least a bucket of each one in order to be able to filter the fluid exporter. So let's take a bucket of oxygen and a bucket of hydrogen, which doesn't make too much sense given that they are gases, but that's fine. Over here, we can then get our portable logic programmer, and then we want fluid, hydrogen. I must have swapped the oxygen before I took the card out. That's my bad. In here, we want to export the fluid that is hydrogen, and the fluid that is oxygen. That should begin to export it. It does, and that should hopefully increase the speed at which we get plastic. What we could probably do with doing here is getting yet more speed and energy upgrades so that we can make all of these machines faster to compensate. I'm going to make a stack of iron and a stack of gold pressure plates. That should in turn allow us to make, hopefully, somewhat close to a stack of speed upgrades, although it looks like we're out of redstone, actually, which is not too surprising. I did notice we were getting a little low on redstone over here, and in fact, yeah, we are completely out of redstone. So I think what we're going to have to do is get another simulation supercomputer and use that in place of our current simulation chamber. A couple of things that I've changed between streams. I did upgrade these machines here to Signalum tier, and I also swapped out the exporting of redstone dust and glowstone dust for the exporting of redstone blocks and glowstone blocks. The idea behind all of this was to try and make the production of purple research faster, which I think has worked, but it's also meant that we're now completely out of redstone. Because looking ahead, our goal now at this point in the pack is to complete this kind of cluster of challenge quests at the end of the main quest line. The first 3 here are all research quests, as we've seen before. For this, we're going to need 3 stacks of 64 logistics, which we've got. We also need 3 stacks of 64 mechanics, which we don't currently have, and so I am thinking of adding even more researchers to the mechanics line, which is this one right here, to kind of compensate for that. We then also need 3 lots of 16x production, so we need 48 lots of 64 production and 48 lots of 64x utility. So both of these need upping in production. We also need a lot of chemical. We need, let's have a look. We need 16 lots of 8x this time, so this one's thankfully less. We need 48 lots of 8x. Again, I'm hoping that now that we have the plastic production coming in faster, That'll come in quicker. And then we need, I think, 96 quantum is the number there as well. And again, I'm hoping that once we start getting more of this advanced plating in, that's going to allow us to make the DU plating more quickly. And that's kind of the only thing that we're really missing in terms of getting quantum research, because we're already starting to back up on thermoconducting alloys. These are coming in quite quickly. Between streams, I did make a few tweaks up to our arsenic setup. Mostly, I fixed some mistakes that I made previously. Last time I put this filter into the input slot, which meant that it wasn't filtering for the crushed arsenic, it was filtering for nothing, and therefore we ended up with, I think, beryllium. Yeah, beryllium ended up in here. We had like molten beryllium, and that clogged the whole system up. I fixed that now, so the filter is in the right place, and I made this rock crusher a bit faster as well. Gave it a second little energy exporter there, so the arsenic is coming in quicker, which is why we're getting those alloys so fast. And in fact, it looks like we probably already have enough of those alloys to get 96 quantum research, because we've already got multiple stacks of all of them. And so, to be honest, I might just go ahead and set this to crafting false, just so we don't end up wasting any more resources that we don't need to on yet more thermoconducting alloy. At this point, the Californium is going to keep coming in as the reactors are online. The only thing that we're limited on is that DU plating, which again requires advanced plating, which is mostly a plastic issue, and the thing holding back our plastic production right now is redstone. So let us see if we can't get another simulation supercomputer. For that, we need 2 compressed fission casing. Thankfully, we've still got a ton of fission casing, because as it turns out, we actually need to set up 2 more fission reactors. I thought we were done. I thought we'd had all of our fill on fission, but no, we need 2 more fission reactors. You'll see I've set up the base for 2 more 15 by 5 by 3 reactors over here. We'll get to those later on in the episode. For now, though, let me quickly go and steal this simulation chamber, making sure we take that witch data model out as well. That should be everything we need in order to make the simulation supercomputer. One would hope. Boom. And then, I guess for now, we're going to place this down in here. This room was not really designed with this in mind. We could move it, but I think, to be honest, this should be fine. We just need to make sure that the witch data model goes in one of these. We then need an item conduit running over to this one here for the polymer clay. We can put the polymer clay that we have in as well. And I'm going to need more item conduits to make this happen. That is completely fine. Let's do something like this, and not like that. Ideally like that. Fantastic. Get rid of you. And using our Yeta wrench here, we can make sure that this is set to insert. Perfect. So that should continue to receive polymer clay. Yep, perfect. I just want to make sure that did actually work, and it does. And then now it's just a case of giving it power. We've got quite a few energy exporters on us, and so if we do something, I guess, like that is going to be the easiest way to do it. Give that power. That should begin producing the pristine witch matter, and then we should be able to just export that directly into the loot fabricator here, and everything should be kind of good. The only potential problem is running the item cable between these, although I guess what we can probably do in a pinch here is just put this down, and then if we get another item exporter, we can just use that item exporter to export the pristine matter to this guy, although that gives us another problem, and that problem is that you have to insert to the top of the loot fabricator, and so this is where things get a little bit dicey. And it's also possible, though, at this point, that we might actually need a second loot fabricator, just because of the speed at which this one runs is not particularly fast. But, you know what, let's give it a try. Let's give it to you. Let's put the item exporter on the top. If we need a second one, we can always look at setting that up. Let's get our logic programmer, make sure that's set to item, and then we do want to make sure, actually, that we have at least one of these, and you'll see they are coming in nice and fast, which you love to see. Item, boom, variable card, pristine witch matter, and we'll whack that in right about here. And then, again, I guess the easiest way for us to do this now, in terms of getting it power, is going to be to once again place down an energy exporter right about there. And that should, hopefully, bring our redstone production up quite a bit. Although, as I mentioned, I do have a feeling that we're not going to be able to use the pristine witch matter faster than it's coming in. And so, if we really wanted to get our redstone production up a lot faster, another loot fabricator would be our best bet. And given that they're really not too difficult to make, I feel like we might as well quickly whip up another one of these. Do we have any aluminum plates? We do. That's very helpful. Boom, sooty casing, and boom, loot fabricator. Let's put you right about here, and hooking this up should be as simple as doing this, setting you to always active, and then just throwing down yet another energy exporter and another item exporter. Okay, so the second one is set up here. If we want perfect round robin, we want to make sure that the inserts are set to round robin. I think we can do that in here. We can go round robin true, and we want to change the item transfer rate to 1. That's still going to move a lot of items, but it's going to mean that every other item obeys the round robin rule. If you set it to 64, then it'll send like a stack here, then a stack here, then a stack here, then a stack here, which is not really what we're after. So long as it's set to item transfer rate of 1 and round robin, they should get evenly distributed between these two loot fabricators, and that should give us a decent amount of redstone for all of the upgrades that we're going to need, and we do need quite a lot of upgrades going forward here. This is good. It looks like we are now using these faster than they're coming in, which is good because these produce them very quickly. Right now, I actually do wonder what the power draw is inside of the simulation supercomputer. It is 250 RF per tick, which is really not too bad. What we could potentially do then is we could potentially even look at putting some speed upgrades in here. The tier 2 speed upgrades do make it quite expensive, but I think it's fine. I don't think it's going to use that much extra power. And so if we just do this and this, and then make sure that you are set to transfer the full 5,000, which you are, that should just go even quicker than it was previously, and now we should hopefully be producing the pristine witch matter faster than these loot fabricators can use it, because I think a second ago we were going to run out. So this is good. We've got a lot of redstone coming in. That should back up sooner rather than later, and all of our systems should keep going, and now we can pivot back to hopefully making speed upgrades and energy upgrades. Of course, we're going to have to wait on the energy upgrades because we do need to wait for the redstone, but over here, it looks like the hydrogen is still the limiting factor and potentially the oxygen as well. Let me go check over here and make sure that things are set up correctly. So power is full, which is what we expect. Here, hydrogen is full, and here we've got gelid cryothium. That is because I set this to a fluid interface, and for some reason, gelid cryothium needed somewhere to go. In that case, I wonder if a fluid importer is probably a better option instead of a fluid interface, because the fluid interface seems to be having issues here if we ever use up all of the fluid. So let me quickly swap out you for you, and then let me quickly delete the gelid cryothium in here. And by delete the gelid cryothium, I might actually keep it, because we are going to need more gelid cryothium before the end of the pack. We need to make 1,000 cryothium coolers, which needs gelid cryothium, so the 180 buckets worth we have in here could actually come in quite useful. And so what I might do instead is get rid of this naphtha. We are needing naphtha, but we're also producing naphtha automatically, so getting rid of the 180 buckets of naphtha in here shouldn't really be too much of a problem. We'll just, once again, chuck that into the nullifier, and then we'll throw this down in place of the old hydrogen tank. Of course, making sure that we first get rid of this, then do this. That instantly fills up with hydrogen. Fantastic. And then we'll put you there. And then from there, we can just say import all fluids. Perfect. That should continue to work. In here, we've set the deuterium, and there's nothing else here produced. So the deuterium should delete excess. Everything else should continue working. Power is doing just fine, actually, to the point where we could probably even put a few more speed and energy upgrades in here. Plastic really is something that we need to be producing an awful lot of, so 84,000 RF per tick is probably worth spending. And back over here, we can now see if this is the next bottleneck, which it doesn't seem to be, actually, surprisingly. Okay, so unfortunately, it turns out this actually doesn't work. You can't import to an exporter, so you can't just put a fluid import here and a fluid export on the other side. This does have to be an interface. However, the Twitch chat has pointed out that if you shift right click, that should lock the tank to its current fluid. And so if we quickly swap this out for an interface again, that should start taking the hydrogen, but now once the hydrogen is all gone, it shouldn't fill up with gelid cryothium. At least that is the idea. Do we have one more fluid interface in the system? We do indeed. Fantastic. Let's do one of these. and one of those. Perfect. That's going to take the oxygen as well, send that to where it needs to go. And so now, finally, we can come back over here yet again and see if we need speed upgrades here. And it looks like we totally do. Now, the trouble here, of course, is that we're once again limited to 5,000 RF per tick or thereabouts. We do want to make sure that you're receiving the full 5,000, which you are. And of course, if we wanted to, we could also, throw another connector on the bottom to double that up to 10,000, which we might look into doing. For now, I'm going to see if this hydrogen is still coming in faster or not. And then up here, we can do the exact same thing where we throw in 5 speed and 5 energy upgrades. Speaking of those energy upgrades, how many of those can I make? 23 is fine. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm pretty sure this also uses close to 5,000 RF per tick. Yeah, 4 is what we need, not 5. That is fine. Let's make sure you're getting the 5,000 as well. Good stuff. Okay, cool. So that should keep plastic coming in a lot faster, and I'm going to go ahead and re-put down the item interface on the plastic drawer, because right now we are still just backing up fully on plastic. We do have a fair amount of fission casing, but I am going to go ahead and steal like at least another stack, maybe a stack and a half of plastic, and set that aside just like we've been doing previously to make sure we have enough plastic to make our final 2 reactors. Let's go and throw this item interface back down right about here. And hopefully with that, we should start to see the rods over here back up, which I think, yeah, they're not doing currently, but they should hopefully soon start to back up again. Over here, we're going to start making more plates. Those plates are going to get sent around to here. That's going to produce more advanced plating, and the hope is that eventually we start to back up on advanced plating, because then it's going to allow us to start making that quantum research. I think I will throw a couple of... Oh, I guess we're already full up on augments in there, eh? Let's get a Signalum upgrade kit, I guess, and try and make that just a little bit faster. We'll do you, and then we just need 2 more of the speed augments. And I think we're probably doing okay on power. I have added a lot of new stuff between streams, which has kind of stressed the power situation a little bit, but we are backing up on power. At the start of the episode, we were a lot lower. You'll see we've got 11 million in the tank. It is going down, which makes me think we are currently maybe using more than we're producing. We were pretty stressed at the beginning of the episode. That is due to the fact that between streams, I did add more researchers to the blue research line. I think I doubled up, basically, the 4 that we had up to 8. So we're now producing more blue research, again, just because we need so much of it. And between streams, we did also do a little bit of work on refining our coal coke setup. So over here, we, of course, previously had a ton of coke ovens. Between streams, I've torn down every single one of them and replaced them with redstone furnaces. So now we have, I believe, 16 redstone furnaces, all fully kitted out with Signalum upgrade kits and auxiliary reception coils, and of course, that pyrolytic conversion, because that is what is allowing us to turn coal into coal coke. And in doing that, I've basically gotten rid of the other kind of coal coke, this one here from Immersive Engineering, entirely. We used to have a drawer right here for the old coal coke. What I've done between streams, I've got rid of that drawer, moved the coal coke drawer, the new coal coke drawer that used to be here, round to here so that the new coal coke can be used to make torches, and I've redone this drawer up here to allow the new coal coke to be used in the production of steel. So all of our steel is now back online. We're also getting power to our boilers again using the new coal coke. Everything is now just using that new coal coke, and as you can see, the drawer is now completely backed up. So these are doing their jobs. Even fully kitted out, they don't use that much power. Each of them just uses 60 redstone flux per tick. So even with 16 of them, we're using, I think, about 960 redstone flux per tick total for our coal coke production, which is completely fine. Power-wise, if we are having trouble, which it looks like we might be, we were at 11 a minute ago, now we're at 7.2, so it's going down somewhat quickly, although it does appear to be somewhat stabling out. One thing we could potentially do is we could put a power interface onto the big old battery over here, and I think there is a possibility that we could maybe set it to a lower priority. I'm not quite sure how that works, but, like, I get the premise of how it should work, but I'm not quite sure in practice if it's going to work how I think it works. Let's try doing that. So if we are going to do that, we need to find a bit of the battery. None of these are connected to the main line, which is kind of the problem. All of these little cables are all kind of on their own little independent networks. So what we'd probably have to do is something like this, and then connect that up to something like this. And then here, we could just give this a lower priority. and save. Obviously, this is currently completely out of power, and the reason for that is that we're just not producing the fuel fast enough by the looks of it. Over here, the production of LEU-233 fuel, we're missing LEU-238, which makes sense. That's what's being produced over here, and we're using that to make some of our quantum research. So it's quite possible that we just need even more uranium processing, because a lot of that is getting turned into LEU-235, which is essential, but we just need even more of it. We need so much LEU-235 that it's kind of crazy. Are these reactors over here still chugging away? You're online and you're fully backed up on depleted HEP241, so you could also probably do with a couple of speed and energy upgrades to try and burn through that backlog fast enough to keep everything chugging along there as well. And then I assume that you're also on? You are also on. This one lasts a very, very, very long time, which is a potential problem. We do need to be able to get rid of the depleted fuel, and for whatever reason, you're not exporting. That is because, fool that I am, I did not say export all items on that in the last episode. That makes complete sense. The kind of chicken and egg problem that we have here is that I can put more speed and energy upgrades into this guy, but we kind of need that power to keep him going, because he sucks back a lot of energy. And I guess we could even look here at trying to get the maximum 64 speed and energy upgrades into this isotope separator. And then at that point, if we need more than this, then we just need to make another isotope separator. That's really all we can do at that point, but hopefully that is somewhat good enough. I see that we did get another big old power boost there, which should keep everything going for at least a little bit longer. And it looks like we are doing pretty well on this. I'm hopeful that plastic production is holding strong, and that we're actually starting to see advanced plating and, more importantly, plastic frames backing up over here, which we should do, slowly but surely. So anyway, while we wait for all of this to kind of play out, we'll keep an eye on it and see how it goes. We do need to set up 2 more reactors. The good news is that these 2 reactors are also going to provide us with even more power for this whole setup here. The 2 reactors we need are due to this quest down here. So the Quantum Probes quest, I think, is kind of going to be the hardest quest left to do outside of the research. The research shouldn't be too difficult. Maybe. I'm not 100% confident on that just yet, but I'm hopeful this shouldn't be too bad. The portal coolers should be fairly straightforward. The 10 billion power is just a matter of time. All of these are fairly easy to make. This one is super easy. The only tricky one, I think, is going to be the quantum probes. We need 1,000 of these. They require plastic plates, so we're going to have to get 4,000 plastic plates backed up and ready to craft into quantum probes. We then need this plutonium RTG, and the plutonium RTG is made from graphite, which we can make a lot of, basic plating, which we can make a lot of, and then, annoyingly, plutonium-238, which is a variant of plutonium that we don't currently have. None of our pre-existing infrastructure makes plutonium-238. We've got plutonium-241, we've got plutonium-242, we don't have plutonium-238. And so, between streams, I had to look through like what chains we could use to get to plutonium-238, and I came up with this one here. We can take the thorium that we are backing up on, actually. We've got a ton of thorium over here that we're not using currently. We have 2,048, and then we've got a bunch more backed up around here, and we've got 32,000 thorium shards, and we're probably deleting some thorium shards as we speak due to the fact that, we're just producing more of them. Let me do this, this, and this so we can start to back up on even more thorium. We're going to take that thorium, we're going to place it into an isotope separator. That's going to get us thorium-232. We can then take that thorium-232, craft it into TBU fuel. That TBU fuel is going to be super easy for us to set up. It doesn't produce much power, but it also doesn't use much heat. It's very similar to the LEU-235 that we have. We're going to take that and throw it into a fission reactor to produce depleted TBU fuel. That depleted fuel is going to get reprocessed, as you'd expect, into Neptunium-237 and Neptunium-234. And then both of these are going to get crafted into HEN-236. So 236 and 237. These two, via a compacting draw, are then going to be crafted into HEN-236, and that HEN-236 is going to get depleted, and you guessed it, produces for us a very small amount of plutonium-238. We need to leave this running for quite a while, because we need 1,000 plutonium-238 in order to craft 1,000 plutonium RTG, which we then need to craft 1,000 quantum probes. And so, once again, it is back to LEU235.com to put together 2 more reactors. All right, so not too long later, and I think this is the reactor that we're going to go with. It has a pretty high 144 times fuel usage rate, so it should burn through the fuel pretty quickly, and it uses a combination of tin and lapis coolers. We could have gotten away with just lapis for this reactor because it has such a low heat rate, but adding in the tin coolers as well just allows us to use so many fewer coolers in total, and that allows us to get more of these reactor cells in, which allows us to burn through the fuel even faster, which, when our main goal is to get 1,000 plutonium-238, is the main goal, right? On top of that, someone has pointed out a pretty good point, and that is that, one, we seem to have a pig in a minecart, which I did not do on purpose. I have no idea how he managed to get in there, but that's fine. As long as he's loving his life, that's good by me. Someone pointed out that over here, we can make our plastic production better by getting yet another Signalum upgrade kit, putting that into here, and then adding in 2 more of these auxiliary sieves, because that is going to give us even more plastic, because the plastic in this is technically the secondary output, and by doing this, we just get even more plastic from the plastic liquid that we already have, which is perfect. And it looks like here, surprisingly, the naphtha is now the limiting factor, which is crazy. Let's make sure this is going at full speed, and then potentially even give that a speed upgrade or 2 to make sure that the naphtha is coming in fast enough to keep up with the hydrogen production, so we can keep our plastic coming in nice and fast. Because again, the ethylene is also coming in faster than the oxygen now. But anyway, now that that is taken care of, I'm going to go ahead and build this reactor here, and then we'll redo the same thing again for the HEN236 fuel, which does have a staggeringly high heat per tick rate, and not that high of a power output, so that one's going to be tricky, but I think should be doable. It's like twice as hot as the HECM247, but again, we'll figure that out after we've got this TBU reactor up and running. All right, so the good news is that the first reactor here is ready to go. The internals of this reactor are ready. We just need to put the rest of the casing down, throw down a controller, and this is going to be good to go. Over here, this is where things get tricky, because as we saw earlier, the HEN236 fuel is very hot, 1,500 heat units per tick, and it's also pretty slow at 15 minutes of a base processing time. And so we've been doing some calculations with the Twitch chat. We need to burn 1,125 of these HEN236 fuels to get enough of the tiny clumps of plutonium-238 to make 1,000 plutonium-238 to make 1,000 plutonium RTG to make 1,000 quantum probes. And so to make that happen in a reasonable time frame, we're going to need a much bigger reactor than we've been making thus far. Thus far, we've been sticking with the standard 15 by 3 by 5. That's 15 deep, 3 wide, and 5 tall. It turns out that a reactor can be a maximum of 24 by 24 by 24 internally, at least according to the FTB wiki. And so we have tweaked the setup over here. We've given it the new info, 600 RF per tick and 15,000 heat units per tick, but we've changed our reactor to be 15 wide, 3 deep, and 20 tall. And this is what it looks like. This is what we're going to build. We need 340 lapis coolers, we need 326 tin coolers, we need 104 reactor casing, and we need a lot of fission casing to make this reactor absolutely massive. And so yeah, this is going to run at 104x fuel usage, and by my calculations, this is going to take about 2.5 hours to get us all the plutonium we need, which I think is fine. I think it's going to take us more than that to get all the rest of the research and stuff that we need. And so, yeah, this is the monstrosity that we're going to build next. All right, so slight problem. That slight problem is that we are out of steel. Steel is used in the making of tough alloy, and we need a lot of tough alloy. I've got 1,000 here, but we need even more if we're going to make the 600 plus coolers that we need to build this reactor. And so, in order to get more steel, I think it is about time that we finally unlock the faster steel quest. So for that, we need 8 production, which is thankfully not a lot of production. We need 8 times 8 mechanics, and then we need some amount of 8x logistics. 32 is the number. This is going to give us another multi-block, another custom multi-block that's going to allow us to get steel even faster. And of course, we filled up completely on logistics research. That is completely fine. Let me see about this though. So I think it's called like the Mega Blast Furnace. The Ultra Blast Furnace, my bad. So for this, we need an Ultra Blast Furnace core, which is a lot of reinforced blast brick, which of course we don't have. That would be too easy. And we are a little light on steel. And by a little light, I mean super light on steel. Let me quickly throw some steel into our mega metal press over here to allow us to get some more steel plates. We can then, of course, use those to make more of this reinforced blast brick. And then other than that, we just need even more of these preheaters. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. That was a lot easier than I thought it would be. And then can we make 9 of these? We totally can. Nice. So we'll do something like this. That's going to get us the Ultra Blast Furnace core, and boom, that gets us the Ultra Blast Furnace. So this is a 3x3x3. Right now, this Blast Furnace here is the one that's giving us kind of recreational steel. All of the other Blast Furnaces are providing steel to the research production. This one right here is the only one that isn't. That's not set to extract. So I think what we'll do is we'll tear this Blast Furnace down, and we'll start using this as our steel maker, like our exclusive steel maker with the new Ultra Blast Furnace. Eventually, we might end up, divvying the steel out if it is indeed, ultra fast. But for now, let's clear out a bit of inventory space and see if we can't get this thing down. So it is a 3x3, but I don't know where its inputs and its outputs go. If we right-click this, the outputs are going to be on the front there where that red port is. And so it's possible that we could just do something like this. I don't think it's going to auto-eject, which is kind of part of the problem. We're going to have to move this drawer, I think. But other than that, this should be fine. I don't actually know if it produces slag at all. Looking at the recipe, there are a couple of different things we can do here. The default iron and charcoal mix 1 steel. That uses 500 RF per tick. There's an iron and coal mix steel, which is better and does require less power. Then there's 2 iron and 1 coal coke mix 2 steel. Then there's 5 iron and a charcoal block mix 5 steel. 10 iron and a block of coal makes 10 steel, and then 20 iron and a block of coal coke makes 20 steel. I think this is the recipe that we want to go with, especially if we use either speed or energy upgrades. We can make this much faster. So I think what we'll do is we'll look at exporting the iron and the coal coke blocks. As far as the coal coke blocks are concerned, I think this is going to be another job for the compacting drawer. If we drop the compacting drawer down over here, we can probably take this, swap it for this, give that a quick lock, and then now the system has access to coal coke in block form, which we can then just export directly to the new Ultra Blast Furnace. So let's make sure that all of that gets put back in. Can I stand here and do it? No, that's a little too far away. Let me clear out even more of my inventory here, because it is just full of stuff that we don't really need to be carrying around with us all of the time. Perfect. Okay, we'll dump all that back in there. That is perfect. And we can also start to back up on more coal coke, which is good. Over here, we need an energy exporter, as per usual. We'll throw you down right about there. We then need 2 more item exporters. 1 for iron and 1 for the blocks of coal coke. So boom and boom. We'll connect all of those up like so. Fantastic. And then, you guessed it, we're going to get our variable cards. We're going to get our logic programmer. And let's do a block of coal coke, which we can steal from here, and the iron we already have, so that's perfect. So we'll do you in here, we'll do items, and then we want 1 for iron, and we want 1 for blocks of coal coke. Perfect. Doesn't matter, I don't think, which way these go, so we'll put you in here, and we'll put you in here. That should instantly start to fill those up. It does indeed. Fantastic. You want to get power. Good stuff. And then we should start to see this working. Now, it is pretty slow, but it does produce 20 steel at a time, and so comparatively to this over here, this does 1 at a time and is not that much faster. Now, we can, of course, put 2 speed upgrades into this, which is going to use more power, but I think in this scenario is worth it. Again, from an efficiency standpoint, the better choice would be to just put down more of these blast furnaces. It's the same as with the researchers. The efficient way to do it is just to build more of them if you want speed, but the somewhat more lazy way to do it, that does get the job done, especially if you have the power for it, is just to replace these with speed upgrades. We've not unlocked the tier 3 speed upgrades, and I don't think we're going to. So I think this is as good as we're going to get in terms of speed on 1 blast furnace. Let's make sure that you are set to give the full 5,000. And we also, I guess, don't need this anymore either. And other than that, we need to move you forward to, like, here. And again, it's not connected. It doesn't need to be. That's fine. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. And this. That should be, hopefully, much faster. And should hopefully get us enough steel in a reasonable amount of time to start building this mega reactor. Of course, I don't want the connection there. I want you to extract, always active. And I want you to insert. Nice. And so hopefully, we should see this coming in much faster now. It's going pretty quick. Hopefully up here, power is sitting in there. It is. I'm going to right-click this to make it into a small energy hatch, just so it can buffer up a ton of extra power, so that if the power does dip, this doesn't like turn off instantly. And yeah, steel is coming in. Nice. Okay, cool. So now the steel's coming in, I'm going to go and see if we can't make enough tough alloy to make the 666 coolers required to build this behemoth of a reactor. Alright, so quite a long time later, this is the reactor that we were looking to build, and back here in the game, we've done it. So getting down is going to be a tricky situation. I did have to build some dirt pillars to get back up here, but we've got it. We've got a reactor that is 15 wide, 3 deep, and 20 tall. It's a fair bit taller than the rest of our reactors. It's even taller than our main base building as well, but it is here. I think I've built it correctly, and it's ready to go, and it should be able to burn this fuel. So now it's just a case of getting 2 more fission controllers and building both of these reactors, covering them in fission reactor casing, and hoping everything comes together. I did once again temporarily turn off the use of plastic, not long enough ago apparently, because we've only got 6 plastic in the meantime, which takes us up to not much. We might not have enough to build these 2. We should have enough for this one, but whether or not we're going to have enough for that one is a different question. I did also quadruple up on these ultra blast furnaces, so now we've got 4 of them. These ones here are still just feeding into the research setup, and so you'll see that these are kind of fully backed up and therefore are not being used. This one over here is slowly but surely chugging away, making a steel. We used a lot of steel making all these guys here, but yeah, let's go ahead and see if we can't get these cased up. Okay, so way too long later, we have our giant behemoth of a reactor, and we have our little baby reactor that's the same size as all of our other reactors ready to go. So there are a few things we need to do. We need to go and steal at least 2 sequential fabricators from our wall over here. So let's go ahead and just knock both of those off. Fantastic. And then can we ideally go and actually get that sequential fabricator? We totally can if we do a bit of a running jump. And I've gone ahead and made the isotope separator, the fuel reprocessor, and I believe all the drawers that we're going to need to make this work, because again, it is kind of more of the same setup. So once again, the fuel reprocessors can go here and here. The same setup is going to apply, where we're going to have item interfaces here and here. We're then going to have item importers on here and here. These are going to bring out the depleted fuels, and I could do with some more cable as well, which it looks like I've placed away. That's fine. We'll do you, and then we need drawers. So here, this is going to get the depleted TBU fuel, and it's going to produce all of this stuff. We do get some uranium-235 and 233, which we could look at funneling back into the beginning of our setup, because we do need uranium-235 here, and uranium-233 is required here. So both of those do actually have a use if we can funnel them back, which I think we should be able to do. So let's put our first, well, I guess what we want to do is we want to get 2 compacting drawers actually that are going to go up here and here. One of those is going to be for the Neptunium 236 and one for Neptunium 237, and then we're going to have our other drawer here. Again, this could have been a 2x1 drawer to be fair, but it's 2x2. That's going to be for the 2 versions of uranium that we are potentially going to re-funnel back around into our system. So just like we've done over here, we're going to go and put an item exporter there, item exporter there, item exporter there, make sure all of that is connected up. Fantastic. And then we'll give those all their cards once this is online. In order to get this online, we need to isotopically separate the thorium and then throw it into a compacting drawer, because I think we can make the fuel using a compacting drawer. I'm actually not sure if that works, but I am quite hopeful that it will work. And so if we throw the isotopic separator, let's say here, and then we put the compacting drawer, let's say here, I think we could potentially then just have another port there and insert the fuel directly in at that point. So do I have what it takes to make yet another fission reactor port? We do indeed. Let's throw you there. Let's grab an item conduit. Let's extract from here, always active, not into this drawer, but into here. Insert. Cool. Well then, disconnect this. We are going to have an item conduit here. Top one, of course, set to extract, always active. And then ideally the bottom one also set to insert, and then it's just a case of getting energy and thorium to that top isotopic separator, and we should be good to go. So for that, we need another item exporter that can go down here. We also need an energy exporter, which I think we should have in the system. Put you there. We'll then connect both those up. Boom, boom, boom. I did bring a thorium ingot with me, and so we should be able to create another item card for thorium ingots, like so. That is then going to go into the ground, apparently. That, ideally, if it's not in the ground, is going to go into this item card right here, export items. That should fill this up with thorium just as soon as we connect up our omnidirectional connectors. We have quite a few of them in the system. They're all on group 0, though, so that is fine. We just need to do something like this. That should export thorium into here. It did. Fantastic. This is going to export energy. Also fantastic. We can up this, of course, to 5,000. And if we have some speed and energy upgrades, we could maybe upgrade that as well. Because this is real slow by default, which is fine. Let's go ahead and add 4 energy and 4 speed. If this isn't fast enough, which it might not be, we could then look at maybe moving this to the ground and connecting it up to the HV capacitor bank, because it's quite possible this is not good enough. But that should start to make the thorium for the element. Unfortunately, it doesn't craft in the way I was hoping it would. I was hoping it would kind of upcraft this like this, but instead it's not. It's downcrafting the other way like this. So this is actually not going to work. That's fine, though. And maybe even better, we can get rid of that. That means that we can get rid of this. And it also means that we can kind of just move the fission port to the back here, and then we can use this port to output the fuel, but also to receive power for the sequential fabricator. So we'll put the fabricator here, like that. We'll set the back to output, like that. Auto eject is on, and then we're just going to teach this recipe right here. I will throw in, I guess a pattern validation augment isn't required here because it's only one item, so it doesn't really matter if this whole thing fills up with thorium. That's not going to be a problem. All we need to do, set the top to insert, make sure you're actually set to insert, and this time it should... Oh, I see the problem here. Okay, no, we are going to need a pattern validation augment. We're also going to need to have a way to get rid of the clumps there. A pattern validation augment or a filter either would do the trick. The pattern validation augment, I think, is going to be just the easier to do because we can just do one of these and one of those. And then now if I take this out, it should only be the Thorium 232 that ends up in there. It does mean, though, that we need to set up another drawer that is going to be used as like an overflow for that extra little bit of tiny Thorium 230 that we actually don't need. So let me get just like another stack of chests. Perfect. Let's get another frame drawer, and let's quickly go and make that look like the rest of our drawers. Good stuff. And we'll just avoid upgrading this to allow it to delete any excess that might come through. We'll put you there, and we will put the tiny clumps in like so. Make sure, of course, that that is locked as per usual, and that should be good to go. Now, I do think this is not going to be fast enough, annoyingly, and so I think we are going to have to give it more power. We are out of power, which is unfortunate. That's a recent occurrence because we weren't out of power a second ago, and now we are. So we could definitely do with trying to figure that out. But for the time being, this should work, and that should eventually start producing the TBU fuel. That TBU fuel should then come down and around into here. I'm going to lock all of these drawers because we want to manually place in what goes in there. Oh no, ignore me. This is not going to work because we want to have our... I guess we want to have our sequential fabricator that makes the next fuel there, not where I've put it. Okay, I'm going to move some of this stuff around and come back because we want to have the two fuels here, the two Neptuniums coming together to make the next tier of fuel. That next tier of fuel is going to go over here to get processed, and then we can sort the output from the fuel reprocessor. So I'm going to move this from up here down to here and kind of have it going in at the side, I think. Okay, so I've moved this down, and we've got a much cleaner setup now. So no longer do we have to export power. We can just export the thorium, which we've done. In here, chat is right in that we can just set this output to void excess. So instead of having a separate storage drawer, we don't need that. You can just set this to void excess. That's fine. In fact, we could have probably done that with quite a few of these on the items that we don't need, like the Americium and the Curium here. We probably could have just voided excess, and that would have worked as well. But either way, this is now working. It's taking the thorium 232 and it is exporting it to the left. There should be a pot behind there. There totally is. And so that should, in theory, be exporting that fuel. I can't help but notice that it's not doing that. And I'm not quite sure why. There's 4 in there. Wait, did it export it now? It did export it. Okay, not quite sure what that was about, but that's fine. So that's exporting it. That's all good. Up here, we've got our second sequential fabricator. I did put another port down, so there's one behind here and one behind here, and then also one down here as well. There's 3 ports on this thing, just like our other reactors. So now, if we get a lever, we should be able to start burning through this fuel, which should burn very quickly in comparison to some of the other fuels here. Yeah, look at that. Fantastic. That's going to then produce the output that's going to go down here. So we want to import all items down to there. This is going to process that depleted fuel. Again, the 233 and 235 we'll look at sending elsewhere. But ideally, we want to take the 2 types of Neptunium and send them up. So we're going to take you, and then we're going to put both of those into their own respective compacting drawers here and here. And then we'll take the 2 types of uranium and we'll put those here, 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 and here. And I'm going to lock that as well. It's already locked, Isaac. Perfect. So now we can just set this to export all items, and export all items. And that should just continue to work as it has been doing for quite a while now. Let's get another pattern validation augment. Let's throw that. Actually, let me just make like a stack of tin gears because I feel like I keep making these and we have a ton of tin. So we'll just do this up here. You are going to make this fuel right here. And of course, we're going to set you to insert on these sides. So here is insert, and here is insert, and then extract, always active, and extract, always active. Perfect. Okay, that is receiving power from the reactor, which is good. The power from the reactor is also being sent down into the HV capacitor as well because we have the port right here for that to go into. That's all good. You should then start sending the items up so long as this is configured correctly. Input on the left, input on the right, and then output, I believe, is to the top is what we've been doing. It is indeed. And so then we're going to do the exact same somewhat janky system that we've done previously. We're going to run this along, disconnecting where applicable, over and into this reactor. So here is going to be our next fission port. That fission port is going to receive the HEN236 fuel, which should work just fine inside of this reactor. My depth perception is bad, apparently. That's fine. Boom and boom. Make sure you're set to insert and make sure that you are set to auto-eject. And so we might have to set that to extract always active at the top though, even though auto-eject is enabled. Perfect. And now it should just be a case of processing the fuel when it comes out of there. My shovel did break earlier. Let me get a fresh one here. Good stuff. Over here, how are we looking? We have got 0 fuel, and that is because we don't yet have enough Neptunium-236. It's on its way. We could do with maybe putting some speed and energy upgrades into here just to make it that little bit faster. Again, it's connected to the main line, so power shouldn't be too much of an issue. And of course, going forward, we can make a lot of these machines faster to try and keep up with this because we do want to make sure that this reactor is running all the time. Because if this reactor is not running all the time, it's going to take us like more than 2.5 hours to get the plutonium that we need for this probe, and I don't want that to happen. So I want this running all the time. Now, here is our first HEN. That should be fine. We're going to take everything out of there and stick it into a framed drawer apart from the plutonium, which you want to go into a compacting drawer, because the plutonium-238 that we're actually after, we do need to have in non-tiny form. So we'll do something like this. And in fact, I don't think we need anything else from this. Let me quickly check if it makes anything useful. It is going to give us uranium-238, which actually we do need, plutonium-238, plutonium-242, and plutonium-239. I think plutonium-242 is used somewhere along in our chain. It is. We're not light on it at all. We've got like tons of it, in fact, to the point where it might become a blockage at some point. I'm going to put delete excess on like all of these, just in case they do actually like back up at some point. We'll turn them all to delete excess. So the only thing we really want is, I guess, the uranium-238, which we'll try and feed back around into the system. But that does mean that it's kind of worth keeping, and so we should probably put another one of these here, like that. Then we need to get 2 more item exporters, 1 and 2. We'll put you here and here. we'll make sure that you are both locked first. And then we'll set all of these to export all items and export all items. And you're, of course, just going to import all items. That's perfect. Hand me a lever, and let's get this reactor online. So this is going to take a little bit longer to burn. Not super long. It's not as slow as our Californium fuel. It's twice as fast as that. And plus, we've got a super tall reactor to try and make that nice and quick. But that should output here. It does indeed. Again, we'll put in some speed and energy upgrades to process that depletion just a bit faster. And then we'll take the plutonium-238, which is what we actually want, and we'll place that up here. Then we'll take the rest of these and we'll put them in to this other drawer. Here, here, and here. Nice. Okay, so this is working. Again, though, we want to make sure that this reactor always, it does make a lot of power, which is good, but we want to make sure this has constantly got fuel. It needs to have almost like a backlog of fuel. And for that, I think we just need to process the thorium faster. And so do we have what it takes to make more speed and energy upgrades? I think the answer is definitely going to be yes. I think we just need to take more fluxed electrum out of here. I should probably at some point have just set up a drawer that is connected to the system that has fluxed electrum in it, so I don't have to keep stealing it like this. But at this point in the pack, I think we can just keep stealing this stuff. So upgrade, can I get a bunch more energy upgrades and speed upgrades? The answer is no on the speed upgrades because we need more iron plates. That's fine. We'll make more of those, and we'll make a bunch of these. That's going to get me hopefully like a stack more now, because I think we should have enough redstone and aluminum to make the full stack there, at which point it's probably also worth getting more weighted plates here so we can get another stack of those energy upgrades as well. Good stuff. Once we have those, let's see if we can't get this reactor running basically full time. So we'll add a bunch more speed and energy upgrades to this, like quite a lot more. We'll maybe go with like 20 of each and see if that's fast enough. Because we need this thing, this reactor here, to be running through the TBU fuel quite quickly, and then processing it fast enough to where we always have one in here, because the calculation of 2.5 hours assumes that this is always running. If this isn't always running, it's going to take much, much longer, which is not ideal. So let's bump you up as well to like 16 speed and 16 energy upgrades. Keep you going nice and quick. And it really does seem like we just need to slam this full of speed and energy upgrades. I'm hoping that we have the power to make this work. It does use 41,000 RF per tick, but it seems like it's holding somewhat steady, which is pretty good. Over here, how much does this make power-wise? It makes 62,000 redstone flux per tick, which is not a particularly large amount. All right, so a little while later, and I think the problem that we're running into is a power problem, again. So we have enough speed and energy upgrades to make this very fast, but keeping this running all the time is, at this point, I think mostly a power problem. Right here, these are backing up. And that's because we're backing up on uranium. That is fine. Let me swap this like that, and let me make sure these are all set to void excess, again, just in case we ever do end up with too many. What I have done real quick is I have gone ahead and put a item interface onto this drawer, and an item interface onto this drawer, so that the tiny clumps of uranium-238, the tiny clumps of uranium-233, and the tiny clumps of uranium-235 are all accessible to the integrated dynamic system. And then over here, what I've done is I've started to reconnect those back up. So down here, we've got an item exporter that is exporting those tiny clumps of uranium-235 over to here. Up here, we have an item exporter exporting the 238, and here we have an item exporter exporting the 233. The only thing that we are missing is one more omnidirectional connector, and for that we need more of these logic directors, which we can now make. I was waiting on our machine, we had a backlog, we had to go and process some more chorus fruit, but that is now fine. If we get 2 more of these, we can then make another batch of those if we put in our last omnidirectional connector. Perfect. And then we can add that in over here, like that. And basically, now we're just taking the excess uranium that we're producing, the excess tiny pieces of uranium that we're producing here, and we're just recycling those back around into the system so that they're being useful. So, as I said, the problem appears to be one of power. You'll see the power here is fluctuating all over the place, and you'll see that we're not backing up on any power inside of our reactor, and that's because our main power generator is not great. We got this reactor here that produces over 200,000 redstone flux per tick when it's active, but is not active that often. And that's when the Twitch chat came up with a pretty good idea. And that idea is to make a 7th reactor because we are now backing up on Californium. We've got like 5,000, 6,000 of these tiny clumps of Californium 252 and 251. And as it turns out, over here, I think we actually have more than enough of everything to make the quantum research. Quantum research is actually coming in faster than chemical research right now. Speaking of that, I do need to reattach this, although once again, I'm going to steal like 2 stacks of plastic so we can make another reactor. But we do have 1,000 plastic backed up in here, and so if we do that, that's going to hopefully get the chemical research back online. But over here, in the time it took us to do all of our reactor stuff, we have managed to start getting DU plating, which is backing up in these 4. And remember, we only need 96 DU plating, which we've definitely got here. We then only need 96 thermoelectric ingots. We've got those as well. And then we need 96 Californium, and you'll see that each of these is full with 64. And so I think at this point, we can kind of just stop exporting everything to these drawers. Like, we can cut this off entirely. For now, I'll just put those back into the system because we might want to enable it again. But I'm fairly certain we've got enough here to get over 100 quantum research, which is more than we need for these 3 quests here. So I'm going to turn that off. That's going to allow us, our system, I should say, to focus more of its time making advanced plating for chemical research, and it's also going to free up the Californium over here for us to make another reactor. The idea here being that if we make this one, LECF 251, which is a combination of Californium 251 and Californium 252. It's more 252 than 251. We've got a ton of 252 and 251. If we take this one is kind of the best of both worlds. It's got a super low heat production, only 50 per tick, but it's got a massive 1,500 redstone flux per tick, and it lasts for 45 minutes. So it's our longest burning fuel. It produces a ton of power and has basically no heat. So this is kind of the payoff for doing all of this quantum chain processing. And if we once again look over here at leu235.com, we've been running the simulations on it, and if we build another one of our standard size reactors, that's 15 wide, 5 tall, and 3 deep, we can get 422,500 redstone flux per tick using this fuel. And it's going to last ages, which is great. So I'm hoping we can build this, hook it up to our power system, and hopefully not have to worry about power for the remainder of the game. Combined with our 200,000 we're producing for our other reactor, that's going to take us up to 600,000. We've then got a couple other reactors that are going to take us up to almost 750,000. Then we've got 80,000 being produced by the steam dynamos and the boiler to push us close to like 800,000 redstone flux per tick, which I'm hoping should be enough. So I am going to hit stop. And this time we did optimize for power up here, not for breeding, to make sure we can get the most power possible out of this reactor. And yeah, now we're going to go ahead and build yet another one of these reactors. This one does require 3 moderator blocks, which we've not used up until now. Back in here, though, if you type in hash and then moderator, and these graphite blocks or these beryllium blocks are fission reactor moderators, and so wherever it says moderator block on the website, we're just going to use the graphite blocks. And I think I'm going to build this reactor above this reactor, so I'm going to build like a second one of these up above this one. That way we can just take the Californium, pump it into compacting drawers, and then have that run into fuel, and then we'll make a bunch of extra HV capacitors, and of course run those up to the next reactor so we can start pumping in the extra 400,000 redstone flux per tick. Okay, so a little while later, and we've made some slight changes. The initial reactor did produce a lot more power, like 450,000 RF per tick. However, it had a 90 plus fuel usage rate, and so it was going to burn through our Californium very quickly within like an hour, and that is not ideal. I don't want to have like a big boost of power and then no power, and then I don't want to be in the same situation a little later on down the line where we have this inconsistent power that comes in every now and again. And so what we've done is up here, you can limit the number of reactor cells, and in doing so, that limits the fuel usage rate. And then you can let the reactor kind of figure itself out after the fact. So we've got a different reactor here that only has a fuel burn rate of 30x, so it's going to take a lot longer for it to use up all of our Californium, and hopefully the Californium is coming in fast enough now to where we basically never run out. And this is the reactor that we've come up with. It's got a lot more of these moderator blocks in it, and a lot fewer reactor cells, of course, but if we go back into the game, this is what it looks like right here. Just a lot of these graphite blocks all the way around with lapis coolers and tin coolers, and of course, now that we have that up and running, it should just be a case of actually putting the walls on this. I put a piece of dirt here to figure out the center, because with reactors like this, where there's a lot of empty space, it is sometimes easier to build from the center than to build from the edges. But let's see, how much fission reactor casing do we have? We've got quite a bit, actually, to the point where we might be able to get a good chunk of the way up here we only need one more level's worth, and we do have a good amount of plastic on us. So if we do this and this, that's going to get us that next level. And then from there, it's just a case of, oh, whoops, my wand broke. That is fine. You know what? Let's get another one. We've burned through like more than one today, which is wild, but we have built quite a few reactors here. And then from there, we just need to throw down all of our casing and then get this hooked up. Okay, so this is all ready to go. I quickly did the same stuff we've done what feels like a million times now. So we're extracting from the Californium drawer into two compacting drawers. That's taking the Californium 252 and 251, turning those into their, you know, big clump versions. Then we've got a sequential fabricator up here. This right here is obviously making the LECF251. This is a fuel reactor. This isn't getting power. However, my plan here was just to put an energy exporter right about there and then do something like this to give that some power. Fantastic. And then, of course, we've just put another fission reactor port right here for the fuel to go into. And so now this is basically ready to go and should give us quite a bit of power for quite some time. The only thing we need to do now is we need to build a couple more HV capacitor banks and then run them up to like this port here to allow us to actually pump that power into this capacitor and then allow these machines to use it, and of course allow our whole base to use it via this energy interface, which we've put down to give the base access to the power in here as kind of a backup if we ever use more power than our boilers are producing. And so yeah, let's see if we can't make like another, I don't know, 15-ish HV capacitor banks. And here we go. We've got a horrible looking but very functional HV capacitor that goes up, around, and connects to the same fission reactor port that we are connecting our fuel input to. And so now, if we get another lever and we throw this on here, we should be able to start producing a lot of power, and we should hopefully, maybe, start, I was going to say hopefully gaining power on this, but we are using a lot of power in a lot of situations. This is going to start buffering up, which it is doing. We're using 132,000 redstone flux per tick here. But again, this should be somewhat consistent power in that I'm hopeful, if we check in here, that it looks like this is going to last a little while. Yeah, it's taken a while to burn through this. So that first one fuel, we got 50 of them already. And then obviously we are making more. So like down here, as this runs through fuel, not this, sorry, as this guy runs through fuel, which it's doing. So this is running faster, I think, than the one upstairs. And if that's the case, that means that ideally we're going to get the fuel fast enough. Yeah, we're going to get the 251 fast enough. Whether or not we're getting the 252 fast enough, that's really the question, though, because each one of these gets us 24 Californium 252, and then obviously 9 Californium 252 equals one of these, and then we need 8 of those to make one of these. And so 8 multiplied by 9 is 72. So we need like 72 of the tinies. So we need to run like 3 of these, maybe 4 of these for every one of those, which I don't think we're doing. So I think we are kind of net losing Californium at the minute. So it's possible that an even smaller reactor could have been on the cards, or maybe even should have been on the cards. Reprocessing this actually, though, does get us more Californium 252, which I didn't even think about. That means that you can kind of just loop this over and over again, though, because now we can just take this Californium and reprocess it. Okay, fine. I wasn't planning on doing that, but at this point, we've come this far. I feel like we might as well make yet another fuel reprocessor, yet more basic plating, and then go and quickly seal a machine frame for another machine chassis, and then reprocess the Californium back into more Californium that we can then pump into our 7th reactor, sorry, not our 8th reactor, to allow us to get the power consistently. That is actually very useful. So we'll take this, and I guess we can probably put it somewhere close to here, is what I'm thinking. It's going to look bad, but I'm thinking item conduit here. What do we get again? Let me quickly check that. We get 252, a lot of it, and a little bit 251, which is perfect. So I'll put this here. We'll run power up to that, probably with just more HV capacitor banks. Although I guess at that point we might as well just move this down to like here, and then maybe do something horrible like this, and make sure that doesn't connect there. And then in continuing our horrible trend, we're just going to run a cable up to another fission port so we can pull out the depleted fuel, run it down to the fuel reprocessor, and then reprocess that fuel. So let's do this all the way up to here. we'll get yet another reactor port. We'll put that reactor port, let's say, oh, I do want to turn this reactor off first before I start breaking it open. That's probably a good idea. Good. I think once it's off, we can safely break into it. We can then put that back like that. And then, of course, go and turn this back on. And then back over here, we're going to set you to extract, always active. And then down at the bottom here, we're going to say you insert. That's going to receive the depleted fuel. And then here, we're going to, of course, extract, always active. You are going to insert. Fantastic. And that should take all of the Californium looping to the point where we don't really have to worry about it. The only real question is whether or not these item conduits are going to be fast enough, but it looks like they are. They're getting it all out in time. And yeah, no, this looks good. This looks good. That should hopefully keep power coming in. And now if we check here, look at that. We have a nice big backlog of power. And we've also got this thing over here running at 132,000 RF per tick. And over here, we've got the Thorium guy running at 60,000 RF per tick, and he's running at a good speed now, which is fantastic. And then the question is, over here, how are things doing? Not great is the answer. We've backed up on plutonium-242, which is not one that we actually need. And so let's get a void upgrade. Obviously, we could do the dumping in the machine, but at this point, we've already got a drawdown for it, so we'll just do something like that. That's going to avoid the excess. Keep that chugging along, which is fantastic. Over here, I think, again, all we can really do here is continue with the upgrades and throw more of these in to allow this to hopefully work as intended. We can only fit, by the looks of it, 5 more speed upgrades in. And with that, it's now maxed out on speed and energy upgrades using 65,000 redstone flux per tick. Hopefully, that gets this somewhat close to running somewhat continuously. It's not quite doing that. You'll see there is like a delay between when things are running here, which is not ideal because, again, we need 1,000 plutonium-238, and currently we have 24. But another one did just come in. It's not a massive gap, but it's a bigger gap than I would like. So with that in mind, we might just have to get like another isotope separator and use another like 65,000 RF per tick to get more thorium, because we just need this TBU fuel coming in quicker. Like, it's just not coming in fast enough to make that plutonium quick enough. Over here, though, things are looking a lot better. We still have, obviously, all of the logistics we need. We're about 100 out of 180 mechanics research, which is good. 64x, that is. These two are not doing so hot. We've got 15x64, we need 48. We've got 25x64, we need 48. Over here, we only need 48x8, I think, is what we need for chemical. And we've got 16x8, so we've got a little ways to go, but still doing pretty well on that. Quantum is still coming in, 50x. All 4 of these are full, though. All the plastic researchers are, like, full-on stuff, so we're full-on advanced plating. Over here, this is all clogged up. We are not full-on plastic, but we're backing up slowly but surely on plastic. Like, we're actually making more plastic than we're using currently, which is good. So over here, we should, yeah, look at that, 183 plates. We're starting to back up on that. So what I might do is add an extra 1 or 2 researchers, which I think I do have in the system. I do. If we take those, we can increase the speed at which we produce the stuff here. Did I only grab 1? I think I did. That's fine. We can do this, and then we can hook both of these 2 up to the chemical research to get that faster. And I think the same's kind of true. I did temporarily just turn this off to get some lumium, and in fact, I'm going to steal that lumium in case I want to make more HV capacitor banks in the future. I'll put that away. But I think these are working pretty well. We're backed up on Enderium, and we're backed up on Signalum. Again, I think we're close to being backed up on lumium. The only reason, yeah, look at that. The only reason we're not backed up on lumium is because I just stopped the machine temporarily. But this is all going quite nicely. We've got a ton of researchers working on lumium, but I think we need more. Between streams, I did extend out the path here, so we've got a ton of space for even more of the purple researchers, and then the same is also true back here as well. This one's making mechanics, but over here we are making the blue research, which again I think is basically fully backed up. Yeah, it's just a case of potentially making a couple more researchers, throwing those down, and letting that run just a little bit faster to hopefully get us up to the 48 lots of 64 utility and 48 lots of 64 production, and then of course the 48 lots of chemical, and I'm fairly certain that the quantum is going to come in sooner rather than later, although... Did I take quantum out? Oh, I did. Thank goodness. I was going to say we lost some quantum, but no, we got 53, which is good. Chat is right. I messed up over here. I put down an energy exporter on this guy, but that doesn't actually do anything because the this is not connected to our main integrated dynamics like network. And so what I actually need to do here, if I want to get power to this sequential fabricator, which is necessary if we want to keep everything going, is I just need to get some energy conduits, good old-fashioned energy conduits, and run those up like this. That should pull power out of here into here. Perfect. And keep that whole system afloat, which is good. So, real quick then, I think the last thing we'll do for today, we've not really locked any of these in, which is unfortunate. As far as 10 billion RF goes, I think, do I need a task screen for this? I think I do. I think what we need to do is get a task screen, which requires the quest book, which you can make with a book and some stone. And then I think we need to put this down, like here, set it to the right task, which is 10 billion FE. Click tick, and then we just need to insert into it, which I think we can do by clicking configure IO. And then obviously this battery is massive and looks horrible. But if we find this spot here and we set it to output, that should start pulling a staggering amount of power out of here and into here. So the problem there, of course, is that in doing that, we have started sending in the power, but the I'm going to move this because the problem is that we don't want all of our power being sapped towards the quest, right? That's something we can probably do once we've done almost everything else. We could throw like a 5,000 RF per tick exporter on there, but getting to 10 billion on 5,000 RF per tick is going to take a while, so we might have to look at potentially unlocking some of the other transfers, like maybe the higher tier conduits here to move power in, but just not quite at 2.7 million redstone flux per tick. But that's a problem for future Isaac. I think real quick, the last thing I will do today is get one more isotope separator here and really try and get this reactor going at full speed, because then next time we can come back. Hopefully we'll be a lot closer on research. Between streams, I'll put down more researchers to try and get us to where we need to be on the blue and the purple. So hopefully we can hand these in fairly quickly, and then we can just focus on crafting the coolers, crafting the portal frame materials. This is easy enough, and then crafting the quantum probes, which is going to be a little tricky because we need to do a lot of stuff with the engineer's workbench to make these circuit boards. But yeah, I'm hopeful that's going to be fairly straightforward. Let's quickly get at least one more, maybe fully kitted out isotope separator. Okay, so I've thrown down a second isotope separator. I've run even more HV capacitors. I made 3 more up to give this guy power, and we've thrown in 32 speed and energy upgrades so that hopefully now we are producing the thorium quick enough. Again, there's only one way to check, and that's to see in here. This is processing. We're hoping to see the next piece of fuel in here almost straight away. Hey, okay, that actually worked. Nice. Okay, this is good. This is good. And so we'll leave this running. Hopefully by the time we get to the end of the next episode, which is when we'll need the 1000 plutonium, hopefully when we get to that point, we'll have enough of the plutonium-238 to make the quantum probes here. And like I said a minute ago, we can get all the rest of this stuff taken care of and finally finish the pack. Look at this monstrous masterpiece of quantum fission reactors and processing. It's quite something. And we'll also figure out what we're going to do with this 10 billion RF hand in as well, because this could be tricky, but should be fine, I think, for the most part. Anyway, for now, guys, that is going to do it for this episode of Feed the Factory.